Hi guys, so I'm doing my second video of the week today, just because I did a very short video on Tuesday, so I thought that I would do like a little bit of a longer one, and today I'm doing for you my top 10 authors. Reading is a thing that's very close to my heart. I read a lot. I really enjoy reading, and down here next to me I have 10 books. These aren't necessarily my favourite books, but they're just my favourite authors. So yeah, I'm going to kind of jump in and just tell you the author and, you know, give a little bit about why I like them. I will link all of the authors down below and the books that you see if you're interested in any of them. And yeah, before we start, can we just take a moment to appreciate how freaking cute my earrings are? Look. Oh god, I can't. Look. They're little dinosaurs. But yeah, anyway. So I'm just going to jump straight in. These are not in any particular love order. They're just, these are my top 10, and the first guy, I cannot for the life of me pronounce his name, which is terrible, but he wrote the books that inspired the video game Witcher, and I love Witcher. I'm a bit of a game nerd. I absolutely adore Witcher, and this is one of the books in a set of 4, and if you know how to pronounce this, please let me know in the comments because I have no idea. This is Andrzej Sapkowski? Sapkowski? Yeah. Anyway, these books are absolutely brilliant. They're full of fantasy, blood, gore, fighting, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, if you are into fantasy novels, I really think you'll like this. They're just brilliant books. They're really good, and I would definitely recommend giving them a go. Okay, I have a very wide range of things that I enjoy reading. I love fantasy, I love historical fiction, which you'll see in here. I love really girly books, which you'll also see in here. So yeah, I'm just gonna carry on. My next one is an author called Jacqueline Harris, and she was the woman who wrote Chocolat, which was turned into a film with Johnny Depp. Fantastic film. She's a fantastic author. Almost all of her books are set in like rural provincial France, which is an area that I absolutely adore in the world anyway. They're just brilliant. They're really good books. They're very in-depth. It's not one of those books that you can kind of put down and walk away from and come back a couple of days later and just pick up where you left off. You kind of have to reread a little bit if you put it down for a while, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. But to me, they're brilliant. I love books that are easy to read. I love books that require quite a lot of brain power. I am not fussy and I will read anything. But she's absolutely fantastic. She's a really good author. She's very inventive. She's very creative. She's a really good describer. Yeah, that's not a good word, but you know what I mean. Okay, this next one is another fantasy author who kind of helped me through sort of my parents breaking up, and like when I was a lot younger, they really helped me through a lot. They helped me escape. And it's an author called Gus Nicks. You may not have heard of him. He's not that well known. But he has brought out quite a lot of books. If you are a fantasy reader, you may have heard of him. If you don't read fantasy, you won't have heard of him at all. This is the first book in a trilogy. He's got a trilogy, he's got a few standalone novels, and he's also got a set of books where there are 7 books called The Keys to the Kingdom. These are one of my favourites. I absolutely adore these books. I think they're fantastic. They're, again, basically this girl is sort of magical, and she's the daughter of the guy called the Abhorsen, who in the world, the other side of the wall, is it's called The Old Kingdom, The Other Side. He basically runs a lot of stuff, and he's very important. And basically, the person controls free magic, which is a bad form of magic, and he kind of has to put a stop to everything. It's hard to explain unless you've read it, but they're absolutely brilliant. He's, again, really creative, very good at description, really, really drags you into the story. Like, you're like, oh my god, I am Sabriel, oh my god. Okay, next up is somebody who you may have heard of. You will probably have heard of one of her books, which was turned into a movie. This is the woman who wrote The Other Boleyn Girl. She has a lot of novels, and they are all absolutely spectacular. This book isn't a particular one. I haven't actually read this one yet. She is absolutely fantastic. Her research is incredible. Like, she really, really knows what she's talking about. I do believe she was a historian. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe she was a historian. She's written books based in the time of the Cousins' War. She's written books obviously based in Tudor times, in Elizabethan times, in the 1800s, Regency sort of era. And as a girl who loves history, historical fiction is something that I love to read, because it's not fact, it's not, but you feel like you're living in the time period, you feel like you're there, you feel like you're going to a ball, or you're conspiring with someone to get the king killed, and it's just, again, so descriptive, so well researched, and so incredibly well written. If you like historical fiction and you've not read anything by Philippa Gregory, I would definitely recommend her. Definitely. Okay, next up, a little bit different, is a horror writer. I love horror. I do love it. I love scaring myself. And this is a guy, he's an author called James Herbert, and he's quite well known in Britain for horror writing, but I don't know if he's that well known across other parts of the world. But yeah, and his books are just absolutely brilliant. Again, some are scary, like full-on supernatural scary, others are more thriller. My favourite book of his is Creed, which is over there on my bookshelf, and this is just the other one that I pulled out. But he's brilliant. Again, you get really sucked in. You're sitting there thinking, oh my god, is there a ghost outside my room? Like, you get really, really dragged into it, and you are very much, your heart beats, you get sweaty palms. And to me, that is how a book should elicit some kind of response from you, whether it be an emotional response, whether it be a physical response. Books should do that to a person. And if a book doesn't elicit any kind of response from me, I'm a bit like, why did I read that? It's not that great. He is a very, very good writer. His writing prose is absolutely awesome. I would definitely recommend it if you like horror. If you are a bit more into fantasy rather than horror, then I probably wouldn't recommend James Herbert, because he really is basic horror. A couple of his books have been turned into like TV and films. He was the mastermind behind The Fog, which is like a really terrible old film from the 80s. He wrote The Rats, which is like one of his most well-known books ever. And in England, you'll know what this is, but on the BBC, there was a couple of years ago, there was a 3-part series called The Secret of Crickley Hall, and that was one of his books as well. He's absolutely brilliant. I would definitely recommend him if you really do like horror. Okay, next up is another fantasy writer. Again, if you are into fantasy, you will probably heard of this guy. He's a little bit of a big gun in the fantasy world, and he's brilliant. Again, he's written like 40 books or something ridiculous. I mean, he's been around for a long, long time. He was writing books in the 80s, so he's been around for over 30 years, and again, very imaginative, very well written, and this guy is Raymond Feist. I just realised I hadn't even said his name. Raymond Feist. He's brilliant. His books are they're almost in the same realm as Tolkien, and I know that so many people are going to hate me for this, but I would liken him to a modern day Tolkien. He has created this immense fantasy world in his own head with maps, description, everything that you could want. He has created this fantasy world with other dimensions to it in his head, and to me that is absolutely insane. Like, if I could do that, I would be a freaking millionaire. And I just think he's a brilliant author. Again, very, very descriptive. You really do get sucked into the story. You feel like, oh, I'm a wizard. Like, check me out. I'm a freaking wizard. You do feel like that. And it's I say that Raymond D. Feist is one of my biggest time sucks, because if I sit down and start reading one of his books, I ain't moving. I am not shifting. I am not getting up to pee. I'm doing nothing. I'm sitting there till I finished it. And they are not particularly thin books. So yeah, next up is a little bit more light-hearted. This again is sort of historical fiction. A lot of this author's books are based in sort of the Regency Georgian era, which I really love as like a historical time period. I find it really interesting. And this woman is a woman called Julia Quinn. Again, she's written an awful lot of books. She's been around for quite a long time, I believe. But her books are so light-hearted and so easy to read. To me, and this is going to sound like an insult, but it's really not. To me, this sort of book is like reading a magazine to me. It's so easy to read, but it's very entertaining. It's very lighthearted. It's funny. It's witty. It's got romance. It's got suspense. It's got drama. And it really sucks you in. Again, you feel like, do you know what? I'm going to meet the love of my life at the ball, the non-existent ball that I'm going to in a minute. You know what I mean? You can almost feel the silk gowns rustle as you move. It's like that. It's very, very... It really sucks you in, and it really gets you into the book, to the point that I've actually read one of these books in one sitting. I have sat there and just read it and been like, right, it's too good to put down. I can't do it. So yeah. Okay, next up is a YouTube celeb. She is one of the hottest YouTubers around. Everybody knows her. Most people are subscribed to her. She is absolutely freaking great. She is my idol. She can do no wrong, as far as I'm concerned. She can do absolutely no wrong. And a lot of you probably know who I'm talking about, and that is our very own Zoe Circus, or Zoella as you may know her as. And this is her debut novel. I was a little bit dubious, I'm not going to lie, about this book. I'd seen her talking about it, and I thought, I might give it a go. It's not really my thing, but I might give it a go and see if I like it. Anyway, this was when the book first came out. She's now got like 3 or 4 of them. But it took me a little while to get it. You know what it's like. You think, I've got to get that. I've got to get it. And you just put it off and put it off and put it off. And eventually, I picked it up. And boy, was I glad that I picked it up. For a debut novel, this is possibly one of the best books I've ever read. Considering this is her first book, and she's not a professional author, she's obviously a professional blogger, she's a professional YouTuber, but she isn't really a professional writer. Like, she is now, but she wasn't when she first wrote this book. And for someone who had never done it before, who didn't know what they were doing, who was, and I've seen the videos, who was full of so much self-doubt. Like, Zoella, if you ever watch this, don't ever doubt your writing skills. Like, you know, I'm not in any position to tell you to doubt anything else in your life, but as someone who has read your books, never, ever doubt your writing skills, because honestly, one of the best debut novels I have ever read. And I have read a lot of debut novels. Most of them are awful. This literally held and captured my attention so much I didn't move. And I am not kidding you. I read it in one sitting. In fact, I've read it twice in one sitting. Well, I'm going to rephrase that. I have read this book twice, separate times, and I've read it in one sitting. Like, that is how great this book is. It is... It shows you the good and the ugly of social media. It shows how it can really alter people's lives. Not always for the good, but not always for the bad either. It shows you how being in an online world and part of an online community, like we all are here, that sometimes it can go horrifically wrong, but at other times it can be your saving grace. It can be... Sometimes the people online, the faces you never see, are sometimes the only people you can talk to. And this book really highlights that, and I love the fact that she based the character on herself, warts and all, her anxiety, her self-doubt. Everything was in this character. It was a lovely little romantic story, definitely age appropriate for the people it was aimed at. There was nothing untoward in it, there was nothing sexual, it was just a little girlfriend-boyfriend kissing, holding hands, hugging sort of relationship. Totally age appropriate, because obviously this book is aimed at young adults. Totally age appropriate, and it was just absolutely brilliant, and I cannot fault this book. Woman, I don't know how you do it, but you can do everything. You're amazing. Okay, I'm on to the last two books now, guys. I hope I haven't waffled too much for you. This next book, I have read so many times because I love it that much. It was handed to me on my 15th birthday by my next door neighbour, and she said that when she was my age, she had been bought it, and it had really helped her understand a lot more of the world. So she gave it to me, and I'm not gonna lie, it really did help. I mean, there is now a film of it, which basically revolves around the actual least important part of the story, which annoyed me a little bit. And it's Life of Pi by Jan Martel. Now, I know I said that this is going to be about my authors, but I've only ever read Life of Pi by Jan Martel. But I love the book so much, I cannot not include him in this list. Obviously, in the film, it very much focused on the tiger and him in the boat. And I can understand why. That's probably the most interesting part of the story, but it's not the most important part for me. This book helped me to accept other people for who they were. It helped me to understand pain, suffering, and how people can actually come through that the other side and not be total dicks. Like, you can be in pain, you can suffer, you can have a terrible freaking time, but you're gonna come out the other side alive. And that's kind of what this book showed me when I was 15. And, you know, every tiny bad thing that ever happened to me was like the worst thing in the world. In reality, it wasn't. Anything that happened to me when I was 15 was really inconsequential when I think about it. But it's just brilliant. And I mean, if you've seen the film and you like the film, please go and read the book, because honestly, it is absolutely freaking amazing. Just please read it. And lastly, again, is another sort of light-hearted, girly book, basically. And this is an author, I've only actually read one of her books, but I've got another two waiting for me to read. And I actually really, really liked her way of writing, so I'm going to throw her in there just because she's not like an old favourite, she's definitely a more recent favourite, but she's brilliant anyway. And her name is Lucy Diamond. The book I hold in my hand is called The Secrets of Happiness. I found her writing to be very in-depth, very well thought out. You know how when you're reading a book sometimes and you just feel like the author has thrown words together and they don't really care what it sounds like? She doesn't do that. She has definitely thought about what she's trying to say and has strung the words together so beautifully. She has... her description... To be fair, it's not really... Why? Every time. To me, there's not a lot of description in there, but it's a story that doesn't really need it. It's quite a dark story. Like, the basics behind it is quite dark. But again, it shows you how people, and especially women, can be some of the strongest people in the world. And we are. And we should all know that women are incredibly powerful, especially in this day and age. We are some of the most powerful people on the planet. And it shows you how women can be powerful, but are also, like everybody else, male, female, on the planet. People may think we're invincible, but we're really not. Anyway, I'm going to have to hurry up and shut this video down because my son is crying. But thank you very, very much for watching. I love filming for you guys. Please tell me what you thought of the video, and if you'd like to do something like this again. I'd absolutely love your feedback. Please give me a big Please give me a big thumbs... I can't talk today. A big thumbs up. And please press the big red subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all. Bye bye.